Okay, Lamai, good evening. So we'll start the second session relevant to the web development fundamentals. So last time we discussed the basic concepts relevant to the HTML and CSS. So we have used uh, uh, different examples to see how we can use HTML and CSS in order to create a basic web page. And then by using HTML, we have created the basic structure of the web page, and then by using the CSS, we have added some styles. So today we are going to discuss again two topics relevant to web development fundamentals. We will be doing the JavaScript part as well as the PHP code along with the database. So that means by using the HTML, CSS, PHP and JavaScript together, you can come up with a web application where you can use those technologies to create an entire web application, and you can collect the data by using different web forms. So we'll see such kind of example at the end as well. So along with me today, we have Miss Osuri as well. So these are the details. So if you all have any issues, you all can reach ask those issues. So there's one question relevant to the recording. So the recordings will be given to you, Lamai. So no issues, the recordings will be given to you. So we'll start the content or the session. So, and before we move forward, these are some of the other topics that you all are going to learn within this same workshop sessions. So in the upcoming weeks, you all will be discussing different important topics such as let's say the robotics introduction, and then the AI and ML, and then no code or low code programming. Likewise, different important topics will be discussed in the next few workshop sessions as well. So from today's session, the web development part is over. Okay, Naman. So just like I told you, today we are going to discuss the JavaScript part and the PHP part. So I will be doing the JavaScript concept, and then there we can discuss about the introduction, and we can see why we need JavaScript, and we can see how we can include the JavaScript code into our HTML pages. And then based on that, we can see how we can come up with the different variables and arrays in JavaScript, and how we can create functions. And by using all of those concepts, we will be doing different examples time to time. And then you can get actual idea how you all can use these concepts. So the PHP part is done by Miss Osuri. So she will be covering the PHP basics, and then we will move to some examples by connecting the database as well. So as the first part, Lama, we will discuss the JavaScript. So first of all, we need to know, or we need to identify why we need JavaScript. So as I told you all earlier, last time what we did was we have discussed the HTML. So in HTML, we have created the basic structure of the web page. And by using CSS, we have added some styles. So we have decorated the web page that we have created. So HTML is giving us the basic structure of a web page. And then by using CSS, we are adding some styles. So we are decorating the available web page. After that, in order to come up with actual functionalities or the behavior of that relevant web page, we need to get the help of the JavaScript. To do that, by using HTML and CSS alone, we can't do, because those are doing different work. So the importance of JavaScript is we need that JavaScript in order to implement the behavior of the web page, right? So with that, Lama, now you can see that JavaScript is also another important part that we have. So we will discuss about the concepts one by one. So to start with, first of all, now last time you all discussed about CSS, no? So there you have learned different methods to include the CSS code within the HTML page. right? So using inline, internal, external, likewise stream methods were discussed. So here also we have multiple methods. First we have internal method, and then we have external script file or external method. So under the internal, again we can find out two categories. That is, we can include the JavaScript code inside the body section of the HTML code, or else we can include this JavaScript part within the head section of the HTML code. So you all know the different components in HTML page. We have two main parts, the head section and the body section. Those things we discussed last time. So in the head section, we include the information about the web page. And in the body section, we include the actual content that we want to display on the web page. So that means in JavaScript, if you think about the JavaScript code we can include within the head section or within the body section. So we'll see how we can include them by using different examples as well. So time to time, if you have any issues or if you get any issues relevant to any example or concept while we discuss, you can ask and clarify the issues while we do the examples, right? Okay. So first of all, I'm going to start with the internal. So like I told you, we have two methods. So the first method, that is the internal one. So I'm going to start with the internal scripts here. So whenever we are dealing with the JavaScript code, in order to include that into our HTML page or HTML code segment, we need to get the help of a new element, which is the script element. So this element we didn't discuss last time because we didn't use it. So today we are going to use that script element. So there also you have opening tag and a closing tag. And in between this opening and closing tag, we can include the JavaScript code. So that's what we are going to do today. And we are going to see how we can include them within this script element. So element or tag, if you can remember, last time we discussed element and tag refers to the same term here. So even if you refer element or tag, both are referring to the same meaning. So we are going to include the JavaScript code within the script element. So we will see how we can do these operations. Okay, Naman. So to start with, first of all, we will be going along with the example relevant to the JavaScript code in the head section. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a small HTML file, and then we will be like saving the HTML file, and then we are going to include the JavaScript code here. And you can see here within the head section, the JavaScript code is available, and a sample output is also given here. That is what we will be obtaining once we do this. And after that, we can move to the next example, that is JavaScript code inside the body section. So we'll do both one by one we can do. So we'll start with the first example. So meanwhile, if you all have any questions to be clarified, you can ask now before we move forward. Then you can clarify the issues that you have. Okay, Lama. So, just like we did last time, I'm going to use another text editor. So, I'm using the same text editor, Notepad++. Notepad or Notepad++, any you can use. As I have informed you all earlier, uh, I mean, like we are not going to use or deal with the IDEs because if we always practice with the IDE, what will happen or what can happen here is that we may end up with like we don't have to remember anything, no? So then there can be issues. So therefore, if we do the code from the scratch, then we can identify the content easily, because you have to remember what you have to do, so then we can do it. So then we'll start the code. So first of all, I will include the HTML. That is the root element, root tag that we have, or the main tag that we have in HTML document. After that, we can include the head section by using the opening and closing head tag. And after that, I'm going to include the body section by including the opening and closing body tag. Right? So again, Lama, if you just go through the head tag, what we can include within the head tag is any information about the web page we can include within the head tag. For an example, let's say I want to give a title, right? So it is not a must always to use a title, but if you want, you can give a title. Let's say any title we can give. Let's say, we'll say this is JavaScript example. And within the body section, we can include the actual content. So I think in the slide, they have given a different title, but any title we can give. So what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to save this file. So in order to save, what we need to do is we need to give any file name, but the extension should be .html. That's what we have discussed. So we'll first of all save this file, and then we'll see how we can do this. So we are going to save it. So you all can save it in any location. But the only thing is you need to remember that we will be saving the file by using the .html extension. So to any location we can include. So I will include it here, and I will say this is, I will name it as page1.html. You all can give any name. So here I'm using the name page1.html. So after that, I will go and refer this example. So in the head section, we need to include the JavaScript part. So first of all, we are going to include a content within the body section, and then we can have the content within the head section also. So normally we know the things that according to the things that we have discussed so far, we know that if you type something within the head section, that is just giving some information about the page, so we can't see that content. But if you type something within the body section, we can actually see the content. That's what we have discussed. So for an example, let's say if you have a heading, I will give the heading as JavaScript. Now here we have two parts. The title is there, and then the heading 3, which is given as the text JavaScript also there. So if I save the content and if I reload the page here, I see this kind of output. So here we can see that JavaScript term is appearing, which is actually the output of the H3 heading. But JavaScript example is appearing on top of the tab as the text. Why? Because we have given it in the title. So that is just some information about the page. So it will not appear here. But what we are going to learn here is that we told so far is that we can include JavaScript under the internal type. We can include it inside the head section or body section. Regardless of we include the JavaScript part in the head section or body section, we should be able to get the output, right? So now we'll see whether we can actually get the output like that. Okay, so just like this, Lamai, we will include JavaScript. But before we move to that part, I will just highlight this also. Now in JavaScript mainly, so you can see here within this slide, you have something called as document.write, right? Within here, you have something called as document.write. So this document.write is a way, a method that we are using to print something in JavaScript. So if you think about, let's say a C file, like the printf statement, or Java, the print statement, in any language we have a method or statement that we can use to print the content. No? So just like that, here also we have a way to print the content, that is this document.write. And within the parentheses, we can pass any content that we want to print here, right? Okay, so we'll go through the example, then we can understand. This is document.write is just one way. Apart from that, we can use a alert box also. That's possible. We'll see one example later relevant to the alert box. So let's say I'm going inside the head section, and we know for the JavaScript internal type, we have to use the script element inside the head section, and we have to include the opening and closing script elements. Now in between this, I can include the content. So as the content, we can use the print statement that we have in JavaScript, that is document.write. And within the parentheses, we can type the content, and at the end, you have to print, or you have to give the semicolon. So let's say we'll give, let's say hello world as the content. So now I can save the file, and once we save the file, we can reload the page, and we can check whether we can get output. Now can you see, I have included this JavaScript code within the head section. So last time we discussed in HTML, normally when we include anything within the head section, we can't see that part as the output or as the content of the web page. Simply a head section is giving us the information about the web page, right? That's what we have discussed. But and whenever we give any content within the body section, we can get the output. That's what we have discussed. But it's not always in JavaScript. It's not like that. Under the internal type, we have two ways to do the same operation. Include the JavaScript inside the head section, or include the JavaScript part inside the body section, right? So this is just one example. And here, apart from the JavaScript, I have included this example. Why? Because I have used the CSS part here, right? In this location, for this H3 heading, I have included the style equal and this part. So last time you all have learned CSS, no? So you all know the meaning of this. So under this CSS, you all have discussed three ways to include the styles. So this is the inline method where we apply a style for one specific element. Only to this element we apply this style. So what is this style? So by using style attribute, we have to give the CSS rule. So first of all, we are giving the property, which is the color. Color means the font color, and then font the colon, and then the font color value we are giving as red. So property colon, and this is the value red, and then the semicolon. That's what we have discussed last time, right? So now we will use the same content or same idea in order to just again refresh our knowledge so that you all can again practice this, right? So I will use style attribute, that is attribute, not element. Style is attribute here, right? And as the style here, I will give the font color. Font color is referred here as color property, and colon. After that, we have to give the value. So if you want to give red as the color, you can give red as the value. If it is any other color, you can try it out, right? So if I just try to reload the page, so you can see the JavaScript part is appearing in red color. Why? Because we have given that color. So if you change it, you can let's say give green or blue or any color you can give, right? Like this. So then here, we have we have only done this change to this H3. Why? Because we have only added the style attribute here, right? So that is now this example we are mainly focusing on the JavaScript part now. So in JavaScript, what we have discussed so far is by using internal method we can include the JavaScript code. So under internal, you have two ways to include the JavaScript. One is include the JavaScript code in the head section. The other one is include the JavaScript code inside the body section. So this example is denoting us the JavaScript example inside the head section, right? Okay, if you have any questions, you can ask Lamai. So while we discuss, you all also can practice. And while you try out the examples, if you get any issues, please ask. Okay, Lama. Now we'll move forward. So according to the example given in the slide, this is the sample output I'm getting for this, right? Now I will move to the next type, which is internal JavaScript example, which is inside the body section. Now we will see whether we can include JavaScript part inside the body section and get a similar kind of output, right? So we'll do that as well. So the same thing, the only difference here is we include this entire thing within the body section. So within the body section, we use the script element. We use the script element and then we include the JavaScript line and then we include the content, right? So if we save this and if we reload the page, we can get a similar output. So if you want to check whether actually the differences are there, you can change the fonts and text and see. So I will change the font color of the H3 heading as well. And we'll say JS example as the text here. And I will save it. And then you can get this kind of a output, right? So there's a question whether you all can get the lecture notes. That I think that is possible. We will share it later, right? Okay, now we will move forward. Now, okay. Before we move forward, so I will just comment out this line and I will use something like this, alert. And then I will say, let's say, hello for an example, right? And I will save this and I will reload the page. So you can see, Lamai, when I reload the page, I get something like this. Now here it says, hello, and then there's a button where I can press on OK. So when I press on OK, that pop-up box disappears and then I get the JavaScript. This JavaScript term I got by using this H3 line, right? So from the JavaScript code, what I got was that alert box. So by using a alert box, you can print anything just like earlier scenario, but the only difference here is there is a pop-up box. So the content will be appeared and when you press on OK, it will be like disappeared, right? So just like that, Lama, you can try out different operations or printing a text, or else if you want to print something, now let's say something like this. If you try to execute, so you can see I have passed the alert and within the alert I have just passed 2 plus 5, right? So that is 7. So the operation is performed and 7 is passed here as the output, right? So those are different examples by using, let's say, multiplication. Likewise, different examples you all can try, right? So alert is again used to print something, but the main difference is it will be printing the content within the pop-up box, alert box. So then once the user press on OK, it will be disappeared, right? So that's why, Lamai, in all, I think in almost all the examples, we have the document.write. So if you want, you can include both together. That's not a problem. I will show you our output. So this output I'm getting from the alert box. So if I press on OK, then I'm getting this output. So this JavaScript I got from the heading, H3 heading, and JS example I got from the JavaScript code that I have included, right? Okay, Lama. So far we have discussed how to include the JavaScript by using the internal method. So the next type is external, but before we move to the external, if you have any questions, you can ask Lamai. Okay, Lamai. Then we'll move to the next part. Um, that is including the JavaScript. So relevant to this example given here, Lamai, I have given the output here. You all can refer. I have done a similar example, but the text is different. The different text I have passed there, right? Okay. Now, Lamai, the second way to include a JavaScript code into the HTML file is as an external script. So when you say external, just like you all have done last time, what you all are going to do here is you all will be creating a separate file, a separate JavaScript file where you have a code with the JavaScript only. So that code you will separately write, and after that what we are going to do here is we are going to connect our HTML page with the external JavaScript file. So whenever we write the external JavaScript file, the file we have to save using .js extension. That is something you have to remember. If you are creating external JavaScript file, you have to use .js extension, right? So the same external file we can connect with multiple pages. That is possible. That means we can connect the same external JS file or JavaScript file with multiple web pages that we have created. That is possible. Then inside the head section, we can connect the file or as the external file with our page by using the script, right? So we will see how we can use that. So SRC attribute we are using in order to make this link here. So mainly SRC will denote where we can find the file or what is the source of this external file. That's the simple idea. So we'll see with the example, then you can easily understand, Lamai, right? So we'll go for the given example here. Okay, so here I have given a simple file. So I have HTML file, and then we have the external file. So in the external file, we have only this line, right? So we can include multiple lines. In this example, I have only included one. It is not a must to include just one line. You can include any number of lines. Here we have just used a document.write statement, and then we are connecting the external file with the HTML file by using the script element. So by inside the head section or body section, you can do this because you know you can include a script element inside the head section or body section. Both we have seen with some examples, right? Then Lamai, we will move to the simple example. We can use this one as it is, or we can use a separate one. So we'll type the example and we'll see, then we can understand actually
HTML बोल रहे
whether this is working or not,
बोल
right? Okay, Laman. Okay, Laman. So then I will do like this. So I will remove this script for the time being, and I will save the file and I will reload it. So I can just see JavaScript term which is appearing based on this H3 heading, right? So like I told you, Lama, you can change the font color. You can give different properties, not only the font color. You can do different multiple changes, right? So then now I will be moving to the next part. I will create a new file like this, and within that new file I'm going to add let's say a simple document.write, and within that document.write I'm going to include let's say external file or something like that. Any text we can include. I'll say this is external, something like this. So once you write the code, so here I have just given the line, this is external file. So once you write the code, you need to save it. So we can save the code. So you have to select a specific location, and then let's say I will say this is ex1 for this timing. So then ex1, and I will yeah, that is the okay, that is the name given in the lecture side also, so then you can easily understand, right? So I will say this is ex1. So once you give the name, you have to give .js extension. Any name you can give, and with that you have to give the .js extension. So after that, we can save it. So now, if I reload the page, still, we can't see any differences. So the same previous output is appearing. Why? Because we have created the external file, but we didn't link, because this is a separate file, then this page1.html is a separate file. So we don't have a connection between these two files, right? Although those are in the same location, those are saved in the same location. So this is page 1, and then here we have ex1, the .js file, but those are not connected. So in order to connect, we discuss what we have to use. Within the script, we have to use something called as SRC attribute. So this SRC attribute will tell what is the source of the file. Since the files are in the same location, I don't have to give a path. I can simply use the file name ex1.js, and then we can save the file, and then you can reload the file. So you can see this is external file that is coming or appearing because of that external file, right? So if you are using external file, you have to only write the JavaScript code. That means within the external JavaScript, we don't write any HTML codes, just the JavaScript part we write there. And then that external one you can link with the HTML file by using src attribute within the opening tag of the script element. Right? Within the opening script element, you can give the src attribute. So since both files are in the same location, I just pass the file name like this. If the files are in different locations, you have to pass the entire path to locate the file along with the file name and the extension, right? Okay, Lamai. So any questions if you have, you can ask. So while we discuss, you all can try out this with different parameters. You can try it out. Then you can see whether actually this is working or whether you have any issues. Likewise, you can understand the problems that you can face, right? Okay, Lamai. So with that, we have discussed the first part, or how we can include the JavaScript code into our HTML files. Okay, any questions that you have relevant to that part? If you have, please ask. Then we can clarify the questions, and then we can move to the next part of the lecture. So any questions, Lamai?
Reading the presentation or
Okay, Lama, so any questions? If you have, please ask. Otherwise, we can move to the next part.
Will the presentation be uploaded or?
Sorry, the presentation.
Yeah.
The slides are not uploaded to a specific location, but I think we can share the slides.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So then we'll discuss another important part, that is variables in JavaScript. So here I'm using JS as the short form of JavaScript. Why? Because now we are going to use the same term again and again. So I'm using JS to denote JavaScript. So here, in order to define the variables in JavaScript, I have only given two ways here, var keyword and the let keyword. Apart from that, there's another keyword, that is const, but whenever we want to create a constant variable, we are using that. So since we are not going into that depth, we have just included var keyword and the let keyword here. So out of those two also, mainly to come up with the variable or to create a variable, we are using the var keyword. The let keyword we can use, but when you create the variables by using the let keyword, most of the time it is depending, or it is just applicable to the scope where you define it. So therefore we are going along with the var keyword. So in this slide also, you will be seeing most of the examples by using the var keyword. Right? So if we want to create a variable in JavaScript, we can use var keyword and any variable name. For an example, age, name, likewise, single variables you can create. Or else, if you want to create multiple variables from the same line, you can do that. Let's say here you have num1, num2, num3, likewise. That's also possible to create multiple variables by using the same line. And while you create, if you want, you can assign a value. So like here, var keyword age, and we assign a value like that. While we create the variable, we can assign a value. We can include a value to that variable. That is also possible, right? So we'll see some examples, while we discuss the content. Then you can easily understand how we are using it. So we'll use a small example. Let's say we'll create. So for the timing, I will remove this SRC part here because I'm not going to write the code there. So within the script, let's say I'm creating a variable, age variable for an example, right? So one way is you can create the variable, and then in the next line, you can assign a value. Let's say age is equal to 20 for an example, right? And then you can use a document.write or alert statement. Let's say alert statement to print the content. So you can see age is, and then if you want to concatenate, that means if you want to print the age value, you can add the age variable or the variable name here, right? Or as you can know, it says age is 20, right? You can see it is printing age is 20. That's what age is, the text I gave. 20 was taken from the age variable, right? So that is possible to create the variable and assign the value later, or else while we create the variable, for an example, let's say I create name variable for an example, and I will say the name is ABC, right? Something like that. So if I want to print, let's say I will print document.write. I will just say, I will just print the name. So I can just call the name variable, right? So if I save the content, so first I see the output of the alert box, and then you can see this ABC is appearing. So there also, you can include any text part. For an example, my name is And then if I want to print this name value, that is possible. So I am adding this plus operator in these two locations. So this is a string part. My name is AG, that is a string. So in order to concatenate that string to this content, we are adding the plus operator there. Right. So you can see if I reload, age is 20 is printed. My name is ABC is printed. 20 and ABC is retrieved by using the variable values. Right. So any questions if you have, you can ask. So we have just discussed some basic information relevant to the variables and different ways to declare and use the variables in our code segment. So any questions, Lamai? නෑ ඔයගේ කරන්න දේවල් තියෙන ඒතකොට එක්ස්ප්ලেইন දෙන්න ඕනේ ඔයාලට. මගේ එකේ එහෙම එකක්. Okay, Namai. Any questions? If you have, you can ask. Even in English or even in Sinhala. You can ask any question. That's possible, right?
JavaScript කරන්නේ
Sorry. What's the question, Daru? Okay. So we'll move forward if you all are okay. So related to JavaScript, we have discussed how we can include JavaScript in our code segment, the different ways. That means to the HTML page, how to include, and then we have discussed the variables. So along with the variables, we can discuss about another type, another concept, that is arrays. So if you think about the arrays in JavaScript, so in any programming language, also you all are learning arrays. So simply array means a special variable which can hold multiple values at a time. If you think about a given time, at that time we can hold multiple values. That's a simple idea. So just like a variable, here also in order to create an array, we are using var keyword. Var keyword, any name of the array, and then we can pass the parameters as we want. And this is just one way. We are mostly using this way. Apart from that, by using a predefined function, a built-in function called as array, you can do the same. Okay. Now let me see example. So we'll try a small example and we'll see, right? So I will remove this and I will create var keyword, an array name. So let's say array, I will use the same example, letters is the name. And then within square brackets, we can assign the values. So let's say we'll assign the letter A, and after that, let's say B, C, and D for the time being, right? So the idea here is I'm creating an array where we have multiple values, multiple parameters, right? Okay, now I'm going to do a small thing. That is, I'm going to use an alert box, and I'm going to alert. I'm passing, let's say, the array name. We'll see what will happen, right? I'm passing the array name as the parameter, and then if we reload the page, we can see ABCD is printed as it is. So that means, if you want to print all the content, all the values within this array, you can use the array name, right? So by using alert or the document.write, anything you can do the same. But what you have to remember is, if you want to create all the or print all the values or access all the values, you have to use just the array name as it is. Now let's say as the next character, I want to print or I want to include E. So for the time being, first of all, I think this part, we'll discuss. Now in an array, we have indexes. No? So initially we have 0th index, and then index number 1 and index number 2, and the next one is index number 3. Like that, the indexes are increasing starting from 0. So now we don't have index number 4 here, right? So as the index number 4, we are going to include a new value. That's what we are going to see. So we'll see how we can include that. So in order to do that, what we can do is we can use the index number along with the relevant array, right? So I will do that. So first of all, I will have this array, and I will have the alert box also. After that, I will say to the letters array, to the index number 4, assign the value E, right? And after that, let's say we have document.write, and within that, I pass the array name. So if I reload the page, I can see ABCD from the alert box, because alert box line is available as the very first line. So we get that output. And once we click on OK, we can see the ABCD. Apart from ABCD, you can see something called as E. Why? Because we have included a new value, right? So we'll see how we can print a specific index value as well, because by using the index number, we can print a specific index value. That's also possible. So we'll see that one as well. Now let's say, for the time being, I will just comment out this alert box. So let's say I want to print the letters array, index number 1 value, the character B, right? So then I will simply pass an index number, so that now the entire array is not printed, just the relevant index value will be printed, like here, right? So that's how we can access the different indexes or values of different indexes one by one. And apart from that, I have included some predefined methods that we have in JavaScript arrays. So we have the push method, pop method, and then we have the shift method, unshift method. So all are having different meanings. All are predefined methods. So we can discuss about each. And here I have included the length property. That's again important. Why? Because in array, we don't know how many elements are there in this array. If this is an example, you can see there are 4 elements. But if you want to find out how many elements are there in array, you can use the array name and then the length, right? So for an example, if we quickly execute it and see, so we'll take this example, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to include the length property, and I'm assigning it to a variable, and I'm going to print that variable. So we'll see how to do that. So we will just use a variable, and I will say the variable is len. So that is assigned with the letters array, and I'm calling the length. Right? So that means here it should calculate, or it should find out how many values are there and assign it to the specific variable. In this example, it is numbers, but here in my example, I gave the value as len. After that, we can just print the variable which is holding the number of elements, which is len exam. Len is the variable in my scenario, right? So you can see it says 4. Why? Because here we have 4 elements in the array. A, B, C, D. There are 4 elements, so it is just printing that. That's all, right? So just like that, we'll discuss the push and pop also. First of all, we'll discuss the pop method. So pop method is a predefined method that is used to remove the last element from an array. In order to remove the last element from the array, we can use the pop method. So we'll discuss using the example. So simply array name and pop operator, we just have to. So for the timing, I will comment it out and I will say letters array. So that is array name, and I will call the pop method. And we'll include the, first of all, initially, once I have the array created, I will print the values, then we can see the difference, right? And after that, once we execute this pop operation, in order to check whether any change is affected or whether any change is there in the output or the array that is available, what we are going to do here is we are going to print the array again. So then by using a document.write, let's say I'm going to print the content. So simply I will pass the array name. So initially I have 4 elements and I'm printing the values, and then I call the pop method, and then I'm trying to print the values again. So initial 4 values A, B, C, D is printed from the alert box, and then after that you can see only A, B, C is there, D is missing. Why? Because from the pop method it is removing the last element or last value available in the array, right? So just like that, you have a push method also. Push method is used to add a new element to the end of the array. So let's say I'm going to use push method, and let's say I'm going to add Z here. So initially we have only A, B, C, D. After that, we should include Z as the parameter, the value. That's the idea. So initially we can see ABCD is there from the alert box, and then we have ABCD. Along with that, you can see this Z is appearing. Z we are obtaining or retrieving from this push operation. So for the pop, we don't have to pass any parameter, but for the push, we have to pass a parameter, right? To denote what is the value that we insert here. So just like that, you have 2 more operations. Actually, we'll discuss them as well. So shift and unshift. So shift and unshift. Shift is removing the first element of the array. Unshift is adding a new element to the first location of the array. First of all, we'll do the shift example. So we have this array, and let's say we'll alert the values, and then we are going to use shift. So we'll see what will be the output here in the shift operation. So first of all, we have ABCD, and then we have BCD from the after the output or after the execution of the shift operation. So shift mainly it is used to remove the first location value. It is used to remove the first location value, right? So we'll include a value to the first location. Right. So that is unshift. I will include the same example, is it? You can include any letter, right? This is I'm using since it's easier to identify. Okay, so we have ABCD initially, and after that you can see apart from ABCD as the initial value you have Z, right? So it's also a predefined method. Again, I will just go through the methods quickly, right? So as the predefined, now in order to create array, we have the var keyword, array name, and equal operator. Within square brackets, we can assign the values, or else we can create the array and assign the values later. That's also possible. And if you want to add a new element, you can simply, if you know the exact element index location, you can use the array name and the index number, and you can assign it. And if you want to print the entire array, you can use the array name. If you want to specify print a specific index, you can print it by using the array name and the index number. And as the predefined methods to get the number of elements in the array, you have the length property. So length is a predefined one to get the number of elements in the array. After that, we have the pop method and the push method. Pop method is used to remove the last element from the array. Push method is used to insert a value to the last location of the array. Pop method is used to remove the last value. So for the pop method, we don't have to pass any parameter. Push method is used to add a new element to the end of the array, so you have to pass a parameter. And shift method is used to remove the first element of the array. Unshift method is used to add a new element to the array to the first location. Shift and unshift both are doing the difference or the operations to the first location of the array. Right? Okay, Lama. Any questions up? If you have any questions, you can ask. If you don't have any question, we can move forward. Just check and let me know if you have any questions. So my next plan is to use the concepts that we have discussed, and then I'm going to come up with some single example to discuss all the concepts relevant to the JavaScript part that we covered today. But before we move to that, if you have any questions, you can ask them. Okay, Lama. So after the variables and the arrays in JavaScript, now I'm going to move to the functions. So if you think about a function, Lama, mainly what we are doing is we will write a code segment and in order to do a specific task. Now, if you want to perform the same task again and again, what we do is we include those code segments into a function. That's the normal concept of a function in any programming language in order to avoid rewriting the same code, same set of lines again and again. What we do here is we include them within a function and then we call that function. So here I have passed how we can create a function in JavaScript. So if you want to create a function, what we have to do here is we need to use the function keyword. After the function keyword, you can give any name to the function and then you can pass the parameters. If you want to pass, you can pass the parameters. Without the parameters, you can implement the function. Still, it's properly working. And then within the curly brackets, we can give the content to the function. And not only that, if you create a function, you can't see the output, Lamai. If you want to see the function, you need to call the function. So that is by using the function name, and if no parameters are there, you can pass empty parentheses or empty brackets. If there are any parameters, we have to pass those parameters. So I will go through a simple example now, then we can see. So in this example, Amai, we have something like this. That is, now inside the head section, within the script, we have included a function. So function keyword and the name here they have given is say hello. And then they have included document.write hello there. And inside the body section, we call the function. So we'll create a simple function like this, Lamai. So we'll go out of this. And then here they have given you the output, but we will see a different content. So inside the head section, we include the script. And after that, within that, I will create the function. So function keyword we have to use. And then let's say any function name you can give. Let's say hello is the function name. So I don't expect any parameters. So within this, we can include, let's say document.write. And we'll say hello world. And within the body section, we call the function. So now I will call the function, just the function name as it is. So function name is hello. So we'll call the function name hello. Right? So you can see hello world is printed. That is the text I have given here. Right? So that is a simple example. Now, when we move to the exercise that I'm going to do next, then you can see all these scenarios now. As the last part of the JavaScript concepts, I'm going to combine all the concepts that we have discussed so far, and I'm going to come up with a small example so that we can do that. So arrays, we did the examples, Ramai. So then I will move to the exercise that I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to create a simple HTML form, and then I'm going to use CSS to add a simple style here to the button. And then we can use JavaScript in order to do a simple matching, which is to match the input field values that we have here. So we'll see each one by one, Naman. So first of all, we will create this sample, right? So with me, you all also can do this, then you can easily understand what we are actually doing here. So initially I will have the simple HTML code where we have the head section and the body section. So if I just try to execute it, no output is displayed there. Then to create this form, normally in order to create any form, you know, you have to use the form element, right? And without creating a form, even by using the field set, you can still do it. Since it's asked us to create a form here, we can create a HTML form, right? Because I think last time we discussed what is a form and all, so then you know the meaning. So form element, opening tag, and the form element, closing tag. And then the form element is having two main attributes. One is the method. We have to tell whether we are using get to post method. So I will say it is post. We have discussed the differences last time. And then the next one, action. So action is denoting whenever we collect the data to which location we pass the data. So since I don't have a PHP file at the moment, I'm using test.php as my file. But in the next example, when you discuss the database part, you will actually use the action term, and to the action attribute, you will pass the actual file name, and you can see how the processing happens, right? Okay, now we will include the first one, field set, that we did last time also, right? Field set opening tag, and then the field set closing tag. And in between, I have to include a legend. So I will have the opening and closing tag, right? And there, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to include this text, which is check password, right? Check password. So I will include that text. So we'll include check password. So if I just reload the page, I can see something like this, right? So according to the requirement, the field set width you all can change like we did last time. That is, you can simply use style, and then you can simply say width should be whatever the specific value, let's say 25% from the page. So something like this, right? Okay, so time to time, Lama, if you have any questions, you can ask. And while I try this, you can do this one with me. So then only you will be actually identifying the issues that you can get, right? Okay, any questions up to this point, Lama? Now I will include the password. So password field is having a different input type. We know that, we'll do that. So we have password and re-enter password. So in between the field set, we will have password, and then we have to give the input type as password. And I will say this is PWD and the ID as PWD. PWD 1, let's say. So if I just check the content, you will be seeing the password and the password input field like this. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to include the next one, which is re-enter password. So we'll have a line break. And we'll have the re-enter password, that is again the input type is password, and I will give the ID or name you can give, Lama. These things we have discussed. So I will say this is PWD2. Right. So if I reload the page, I see something like this. If you want to keep more spaces between these two input fields, you can add another line break so that you will be getting output like this. After that, Lamai, outside the field set, you have to include the submit button, right? So this is a simple button. So we will use the button. So input type we will give as button, and an ID we can give, let's say BTN is the ID. And then we have to give the value which we want to display on top of this, that is submit. So we get this kind of output. So if you want to keep more spaces in between the input fields, what you can do is you can include another line break after the field set. Like this. That's optional, it's up to you to decide. Okay, any questions up to that point, Laman? So when there's a question, the difference between input type submit and button. So in order to submit some set of values, you can use both, right? But if you think about input type submit, that is mainly used to submit the entire form content to the server, right? If you want to submit the entire content to the server, you can use a submit as the input type as a submit. Whereas if you think about input type button, that is just like the normal submission we can use for any value in a form. That's a simple the difference. You can use any, right? With that, so we have completed part A, right? That is HTML and CSS. HTML part we have completed, but CSS we have to do. So we'll include the CSS part also. Write a CSS code to change the background color of the button into yellow with the text color red using inline style. So last time you all have learned inline, internal, external, different styles methods, no? So we have to use inline. Inline means apply unique style for one element. So we have to change the background color of the button into yellow. Text color should be red. So we'll see how to do that, Laman. So we have to go inside this button element. So within that, we have to use the style attribute. And then as the style, I have to say the font color should be red. And the background color should be yellow. So you can see in the button, font color is given as red and background color is given as yellow. You can change the parameter values and see the differences. But that means you can pass different colors and see. Still, you can get the output. So by using inline, which means applying a style for one element, right? Then we have the JavaScript part now. We have to create a JavaScript function. The function name is match password. And it should match the two values given within the password fields. And we have to call the function in the button click event. So that part we'll do later. First of all, we'll create the function. So within the head section, I will include the script element, opening and the closing tags. So now we'll create the function first, right? So function keyword and then the function name. So I have copied the function name match password. And then to give the function body, we have to open the curly brackets. And then I want to access the values in the password field. So I will create a keyword and I will say PW1, or you can give this full term. Say password 1. And the next variable is password 2, right? So as the password 1 value, I want to access the value that is available within this PWD1 input field, right? So how can I access it? We can use the document, that means and access the entire document and get the element which is having the ID as this PWD1. And we don't want to access that element. We have to access the value that is passed to the element and assign it to this PWD1 variable. Same way, we can say to access the document and get the element which is having the ID as PWD2, which is this. And there also we have to access the value. Dot value. Now we have two values with us. Then we can simply compare whether those are matching or not, right? So we'll add a simple if statement. We can check if password 1 value is not equal to password 2 value. That means those are not matching now. So we can simply say by using an alert box or else by using a document.write, you can print the message. So I will say here not matching or as password not matching. Else, which means those values are equal. So then I will say password is matching. So if you, okay, I will save this and I will check whether I can observe output. So if you can remember, by just creating a function, we can't observe the output. That part we have discussed. But anyway, I will just try it. So you don't have any output from that function. unless you call that function. So that function call they ask us to do in the button click event, right? So that is my under JavaScript, the event handling part. So for your content, we are not discussing the event handling in detail, but for a specific element, if you want to do the event handling, you can go inside the opening tag of the element, and then when the button click happens, we have to do this. So then we can simply say, for the button click, call the match password. That is the function. And you can save the content. So if you just submit, you can see still it's matching because I didn't pass any parameter. So if I type 1, 2, 3 here, you can see I will re-enter the same password 1, 2, 3. I will show you the text so that you can verify. So here also I have included 1, 2, 3. So it says password is matching. So let's say I will include 1, 2, 3 here. And here I will include ABC, right? When I say submit, it says password not matching, right? So you can include, let's say 1, 2, 3, A, B, or any. Here I have include 1, 2, 3, A, B. So here I will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So when I press submit, it says password not matching. But at any time, if you include a scenario where passwords are matching, let's say A, B, C, D here, and here also A, B, C, D. Now passwords are matching. So when you press submit, it says password matching, right? Okay, Lama. There is a simple example where we are using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript together. So in the next part, when you discuss PHP, there with Miss Osuri, you can discuss an example where HTML along with the PHP and the database handling part together, you all can do the examples, right? Okay, Lama. Check and let me know if you have any questions up to this point. If you have any questions, you can ask. If you don't have any question, then we can move to the next part, which is PHP. Check and let me know if you have any questions. So Lamai, one question is there how we can learn JavaScript more, right? So to learn HTML and CSS and JavaScript and PHP all, the best resource you can find in online is the W3 School. So if you visit W3 School by using any web browser, you can visit Lamai. So you can just type, go to a tab W3 School. And there you can see the content. So there you can find HTML relevant content, the explanations, examples, exercises, and you will be given a location to try it. Likewise, you can learn CSS, JavaScript, all those things you can learn, right? So first you have to start from HTML, and like I told you all earlier, try to use the different text editors like Notepad or Notepad++. Then you have to do the entire code from your own, right? So then use HTML, learn HTML, then CSS, and along with that, learn JavaScript, right? Okay, Lama. So if you have any further questions, you can ask. So now my Miss Osuri will start the PHP part. So you all can learn PHP along with the database. So then you can build up a simple web application without any issues.
Good evening, Lamai. So I will be doing the PHP content today, and we will be discussing the main PHP code structure mainly, and variables, database handling, and the connection, and what is create and read statements in PHP. Right. So let me start with the introduction to PHP first. Okay, so PHP stands for Hypertext Preprocessor, and it is a scripting language for developing server-side components, right? So the components developed with PHP should be hosted in a compatible web server. Otherwise, you can't run the PHP code. So unlike the HTML, JavaScript, this PHP has to be hosted in a server. Otherwise, you can't just double click on a PHP file and then run, right? So it is going to be running on a web server, not on a browser. And it is used to build dynamic web applications such as form processing and database interaction. So these examples can be identified as Apache and IIS for web servers, and those are one of the compatible web servers with PHP. And let's go through the applications of PHP then, right? So we can use PHP to generate dynamic page content. And PHP can create web pages that change based on the user input, time, database content, or other factors. For example, it can display personalized content for each user. So that is why we call it that we can use it to generate dynamic page content. And other than that, we can also use it to perform file operations on the server. This means it can manipulate files for logging, storing data, or generating reports dynamically. And also we can use this PHP to collect form data, which means when user fill out a form on a website, PHP can capture those input data, and they can send it to the database, right? And we can also use this PHP to insert, delete, update, or search data in your database, right? So for that, we need to interact with the database like MySQL to manage data. But still, by writing a PHP code segment, you can connect with the database and you can retrieve the data from there and you can send the data to there. Likewise, you can manipulate the data which is in the database as well from your front end itself. Right? And also we can use PHP to restrict user to access some pages on your website, which means PHP can use to manage the sessions, user authentications. Likewise, for example, only logged in users can access certain pages or features, right? So for that as well, you can use PHP. And as So here we have mentioned another application which is encrypt data. So PHP supports various encryption functions. So this is useful for protecting sensitive information such as password and during storage or transmission. Right? So those are few applications of PHP, and in today's session we will be mainly dealing with the database using PHP, and we will be doing some operations like inserting and retrieving the data from the database using PHP. Right? So and let me go through with the PHP code structure. First, so Putala, if you are going to create a PHP file, you need to save the file in .php extension. So when you talk about the HTML file, the extension is .html. There you can include the HTML tags and HTML content. But if you are going to have any PHP code inside any page, you need to have the page extension as .php, right? And the script or the code is written in between the PHP tag. So for the JavaScript, for the HTML, you had opening and closing tag. Same as that, you have open tag and a close tag for the PHP as well. So this is the open tag where you have this greater than sign and sorry, yeah, where you have this opening tag of PHP and the closing tag of PHP, right? And in between that, you can include any PHP code, but outside of the PHP tag, you can include any HTML code or any CSS, any JavaScript, likewise. So here this echo means the print statement in PHP. So if you need to print something using PHP, you can use this echo keyword, and within by using double quotation marks, you can include the text that you need to print. So here when you execute this code, what it gives is, you can see hello world, and with that you can see this is my first page, likewise, right? So just as you have document.write in JavaScript, you have this echo keyword in PHP to print something on the screen, right? So, and there are three ways that you can write the PHP code. Just like the JavaScript, Putala, you can write the PHP in line with HTML, right? So in the body section with the HTML code, you can open the PHP tag and you can close the PHP tag. In between that, you can mention any PHP code segment. And also before the body section, you can include any PHP code which is relevant to your web page on top of the file. That is also possible. And as well as you can have a separate PHP file, and you can have the code segment there, and you can include it to any HTML, any page, web page that you need, so that entire code will be linked into a separate file, right? So you can either have it inline, or else you can either have it before the body section on top of the file, or else you can have it as external file, and then if you need, you can link that file into your main web page, right? So we will be dealing with the second option today during the lab sheet. So I'll just explain how you do it when we go through the lab sheet there, right? So do you have any questions up to that point? Anything you need to ask about the main content? If not, we can move with the next part. So then we shall discuss how do we create the variables in PHP. So in PHP, Putala, we need to start the variable name with $mark, right? And then we must not start it with any other special character or a number. We need to have the dollar mark, and then you can have some letters at the beginning, right? And the variable name must not contain any spaces as well, and it shall be less than 32 characters. So here you have we have given you a few examples. So you can have the dollar sign and then the variable name like this. So you should not start the name with some numbers or any special characters with dollar mark. You need to have the letters first, right? So here you have two examples. So that is how you create the variables in PHP, right? And then there are a few things that we need to discuss about the variables and the user-defined functions in PHP, Putala. So these variables are case sensitive in PHP, which means if you are having a variable name with lower cases, if you have the same name but with upper cases, those two variable names are different things, right? So let me show you an example. So if you have something like this, and if you have same variable name like this, these two are two different things, right? So here you have the same name, but here you have all letters in lower cases, but here the first letter is in uppercase. So these two are two different things. But if you consider about the user-defined function and classes and keywords, so those are not case sensitive, right? Which means if you're going to define a function in PHP, so let's think this is the keyword function and this is the function name. And if you write the same thing, if you write the same thing in upper cases, so these two are same thing, right? So this is a user-defined function, and if you have the same keyword and the function name with either lowercase or uppercase, this is going to be the same thing, but the variable names are going to be case sensitive. So if you have any differences, even though your variable name is same, even if you are having simple letters in one word and capital letters in other word, so those two are two different things, right? So that is what I needed to tell you, right? So make sure you remember that when you think about the PHP, right? So okay, and okay, let's move with the other part. Okay. And so when you need to print something, some value which is inside a variable, you can use double quote, right? So here in this example, you can see I have defined a variable name A and I have initialized 5 to that variable. And if you need to print the value, you can use the echo command, and with double quotes, you can pass the variable name so that it will print the variable value, not the variable name, but the value, right? So, but if you are using the single quotes, it will treat them literally literally. So it will display exactly the thing that you type, right? So here with single quotation, if you pass the variable name with single quotation, it will not print the value but the variable name, right? I hope it's clear for you all, right? So when you need to print something in PHP, and if you need to print some value which is stored under a particular variable name, you can use double quotes and then the variable name, so it will print the value on the display, right? Is it clear up to that point? If you have something to ask, you can ask from me. Okay, let's go through with the next section then. So I told you that we can use PHP in order to connect with the database and retrieve the data from the database, right? I hope you have heard the term database, and it is an external source where you store the data, and it is hosted in a database server, and it is going to be managed by a database management system, right? So you might not have heard this DBMS or database management system, but just think you have a separate table which is hosted on a server, and if you need to get the data from that table, we need to use PHP code segment, and we need to connect the web page with the database, and then only you can get the data from the database, right? So we will be dealing with the database later when we do the example. So for now, just remember, so we have a database. In order to handle the database, we are using this PHP, right? So here, and the mostly used database server is MySQL, and here also in our example, we are using MySQL as the database server. And there are multiple ways to connect the database using PHP. And also, if we need to perform CRUD operations, we say we identify the term CRUD as create, read, update, and delete operations on some particular website. We can use PHP and perform CRUD operations after connecting it to the database, right? So we will be performing these operations, but today we are only focusing on the create and the read part. But using PHP, you can do the update and the delete part also. I will explain it with the examples later, right? So now we have discussed about the PHP code structure and variables, and we have discussed the database handling part as well. So for this database handling, Putala, we need to write a code segment in PHP, and then only we can connect it with the database, right? So first we need to make the connection. We say we are making the connection with the database, right? So for that, we are using this code segment where so here you can see we have created a variable called con, that stands for the connection, and this new MySQL is the keyword which is used in the MySQL, and so after writing that keyword within parentheses, we can pass 4 parameters. Here first we are passing the server name, you will learn it later, and the username for the server, and the password for the server, and the database that you are going to connect, right? So those 4 data has to be passed, and in order to create the connection. So after that, you need to execute the connection and check whether you have any error with the database connection. That is why you are using if condition and you're checking whether the connection is having any errors or not. So that is why you have this connect error keyword. So from that, if you have any connection error, it will check whether you are having any connection error with the database. If so, it will execute this command die, and that means it will terminate the program at that point, and it will give you this error message with the connection error type, right? So along with the connection failed wording, you will get what is the connection error as well, right? Or else if it is successful, it will echo connected successfully. So this entire code is used to check the connection with the database. So this is written in PHP, and this is used to connect the main website or the web page with the database, right? We will be doing an example for the database creation as well, and for the database connection creation as well, right? So that is how you connect the database. And as a good practice, it is better to keep the database configuration in a dedicated file. So example, if you create a separate file as config or something, you can have the database configurations in that separate file. Whenever you need the code, you can include that file into the other pages as well. Without having the code in same file, you can have it in a separate external file, and then you can link it to the page, right? So okay. So after you create the database connection, now what we are trying to do is we have the main web page, and we are trying to pass the data to the database by using insert statement, right? So this insert statement is used in MySQL language. So but using this SQL statement, we can insert the data from the main web page to the database, right? So here you have given an example for that insert statement. So we are defining a variable as SQL, and it is going to store the SQL statement, which is used to insert the data, right? So there you have insert into, those two are keywords, and this my table means the table that we are going to insert the data, and there within the parentheses you have the column names, right? So it is enough for you to include the table name itself without having the column names, but if you have a particular column names that you need to pass the data, you can mention those column names as well. So it is correct even if you have only the table name, but you need to pass all the values for all the columns in that case, right? So then you are inserting into your table, and these two are the columns, and the values are going to be 1 and then the wording SLEET, right? So this ID is going to be 1 and name is going to be SLEET. When you have that SQL query that is going to store the data, but still we have not execute this SQL statement. To execute the SQL statement, what you have to do is you have to execute this SQL variable using the connection object that we create. So in the previous case, we are having this connection object as $con, right? Using that, you need to execute this query using query function, and you need to pass the particular statement here. That is how you execute this insert statement, right? And after you execute this, it will return a Boolean value whether to indicate whether it is successful or not, right? So we will insert the values using this command in our example, right? So then after you insert something to a database, we can retrieve the data from the database as well using PHP, right? So when you read the data from the database, we use select statement to insert we use insert statement. To read, we are using select statement, right? And so when you use select statement, it will return the data from the database to the main interface, right? So first of all, I inserted few values. Now I am going to read them using this select statement. There also I am going to create a PHP variable, and I am going to have the SQL query stored in that SQL variable. Sorry, the PHP variable, right? So I'm selecting this asterisk mark stands for the all, right? So I'm selecting all column datas from the table. That is what it says, right? So I'm getting all the data from my table. And then again, we need to execute the select statement by using the connection and the query function, right? So then we can execute it, and the retrieved result is going to be stored in another variable called result, right? So when you execute this, it will return all the data from the table, and it will stored under this result then, right? That is that result variable is used to get the data and print it on the website later, right? That is why you store it under the result variable. And after you store the data under the result variable, if only there are results, we can read them. If there are no any data to be retrieved, you can't show them. If there's only any data, we can read them. And remember that we are reading the data row by row using a loop, right? We will be discussing this once we do the example. So there are multiple functions to fetch the data or the rows from the database. We will go through with the example later. So here in our example, we are using this fetch ASO function, which is going to return the row as an associative array. So we are first checking whether we have any data. If so, we are reading them one by one, and then we can print it on the screen, right? So that is basically what happens. So first we use the insert statement in order to uh, pass the data to the database, and we use select statement to retrieve the data from the database, right? So do you have any questions up to that point? Okay, so when I started this PHP content, I told you that we can't run any PHP code by double clicking on that particular file, right? So when we create a HTML file, Putala, we can just double click on it and we could run the HTML code on the browser itself. But these PHP codes can't be executed in that manner, right? We need to create the PHP file and we need to use a server in order to run that PHP file, right? So let me show you an example for this one, right? So first of all, we can use any text editor. So here I'm using the Notepad++, and we need to open the PHP tag and then we can have any print statement. So there was a question asking whether we can use the print in order to print something on the screen in PHP. Yes, it is possible. So you can either use echo or print in order to print something on the screen, right? So then you can so when you use print, it will only take one argument. If you need to pass multiple arguments, you need to, or multiple parameters, you need to use echo, right? So it is better if you can use echo, and echo is slightly faster because it does not return a value. But when you use the print, it will return one, unlike the echo, right? So here I am using echo statement. And Putala, I told you that you need to save this file in .php extension, right? So I'm going to save it as PHP file. Right? So now I have created the PHP file. So I created it on the desktop in this folder, right? So if you created a HTML file, you can simply go to that location and you can simply double click on that and you could have run it, right? But let's see whether we can run this one. So here, once I double click on this one and if I select any browser, so I'm not getting anything, right? So I can't see anything. I can't see any print value here. So which means simply by double clicking on a particular PHP file is not the way that you can run it, right? So let's see how we can do this. So first of all, we need to have a server and we need to go through with that server in order to run the PHP code. So here we are using a software called SAMP, and that is going to have our server, and through that we are going to run this one. So this so we call this as SAMP, and it is a free and open source package which contains the server and the database as well, right? So here it has few modules, and it is having this Apache server and also MySQL database, right? So you can download this SAMP into your machines by simply searching for it, right? So you can search for SAMP server as this. You can simply search SAMP download and then you have this main web page, right? And you can first, you can click on this link and then you will be redirecting to the SAMP official website. There you can select the version, right? Here you can download the 64-bit version, which is compatible for your PC. So if it is for Windows, you can go through with this versions, and if it is any other Linux or any other OS X thing, you can use the correct version and you can download it, and simply you need to run the executable file, and then you can click on the next likewise, and it will be installed, right? It is not very hard to install it, and once you install it, Putala, you can simply get the control panel of that application, which is SAMP application, right? So once you click on the control panel, you will get something like this. So by using this application, you can run the server and you can go to the database as well, right? So here you can see there are several services, and for our exercise, what we need is this Apache module and MySQL module, right? So here you have a part called action. From there, you can start the server and you can start the MySQL SQL module as well, right? So here you have several features. I'm not going to go deep into those features, but here you can see the port IDs that this module is running, and you can see the port ID which the MySQL is running. Likewise, you can see the details, and as well as if you need to run any file using the server, what you need to do is you need to go to the location where this SAMP is installed. So by using this Explorer button, you can go to the location which the SAMP installed, right? So this is the place that you have installed the SAMP, right? And there you have a folder called htdocs, right? So under the SAMP folder, you have htdocs folder. And if you need to run any PHP file, you need to save it under this htdocs folder. Otherwise, it will not run. So that by double clicking on a file, it is not going to help you to run it, right? So if you need to run it, you need to include that file inside the htdocs folder, right? So now let's see whether it works, right? So now I have started these two modules. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this example.php to this htdocs folder, right? So now I have it here. I told you previously, still we can't double click on this file. We need to run it through the server. So to run it through the server, you can open the browser first, and then you can type localhost and then the file name with the extension, right? So my file name was example.php, and I need to type localhost / then example.php, right? So you need to have the opening tag as this. Since I had a space there, you can't see anything, right? So, okay. Now you can see the hello world got printed on the screen, right? So let me show you after double click on by double clicking on this one again. So when you do so, you don't get you don't get anything, right? But if you go through with the browser and if you go through with the server, you can run this PHP code and it will be printed in this manner. Is it clear up to that point? The way you run the PHP file? So I will put the link for the SAMP official website. So I will put the So this is the link. You can go to this website and you can simply download the SAMP server. And once you download it, you are getting this type of a installer or an application. So you can simply double click on it and give the, so here you can click on yes and then you will ask to go through with few steps. Just click on next, and then select the location where you install it and then it will easily install. After that, as I told you previously, you can search for SAMP control panel and there you will get the control panel in this manner. You can start the modules and then you can store the file or the PHP file inside the Explorer and click on the Explorer and go to the SAMP install location and there you have the htdocs folder and there you can store the PHP file, right? So after that, so it is going to be stored in the htdocs folder, but still you can't double click on it and then run. You need to open a browser and then click on localhost / the file name, right? Is it clear the way you do it? So we will be doing some examples to create the database and the tables also, right? So for now, I have explained how to install the server on your machines and how to start the modules and how to save your PHP files inside the htdocs folder and then how to run it, right? You need a browser, you need to type localhost / then the file name, right? And then I hope we can move to the lab sheet then, right? So before that, I will show you where you create the databases, right? So here, this Apache is the server, this MySQL is the database that we are going to use, right? So here you have this admin button. You can click on the admin button, which is under the MySQL module. And then you will get the main page for the you will get the admin page of MySQL. So it is going to be PHP MyAdmin. So we call it as PHP MyAdmin. And there in the left side, you can see this is the place that we create the database, right? So we can create the database first And under a particular database, we can create the tables, right? So we are having a main database, and under that, you can create multiple tables, right? So if I go through an example, once you click on this new, you can create a database. And once you can give a name for the database, and once you click on create, the database is going to be created, right? So then under the database, Putala, you can create several tables. So you will be redirected to a page where you can create a table. So here, if I need to create a table like user, and I can select the number of columns for that table, right? So here I'm using 3 as the number of columns, and I'm going to click on create. And then you will be redirected to a page where you can include the column names, the types of those columns, and the size of those columns, and several. It has several options, right? So if I say I'm going to include ID, and you can select any type that you need. So if, in my case, if I am going to include numbers only for that ID column, I can select int, right? Then I can have a column name as name, and then I can make it varchar, which is going to store the text as well, right? So when you select varchar, you can give a length for that as well, right? So up to 100 values you can store there, right? So then you can have any other thing as a phone number or something. And if it is only numbers, so you can have it as int, right? So there are many data types that you can select. As per your requirement, you can select the type, right? After you give those column names and the types, so usually for a table, we are having a primary key, right? So which means that that column is going to be unique for any data, right? So to make it a primary key, when you move to the right side of that section, you can see this index column, right? So there, once you click on this drop down, you can make it a primary key field by clicking on this primary, right? So then this ID is going to be the primary key of my table, right? I have 3 columns, and ID is going to be the primary key. And other than that, I have name and phone number under this table, right? So then after filling out the relevant details, I can click on this go button here, right? So once I click on go, sorry, that is to add another column. So if I add another one like address or something, I can make a varchar, and I can give a value. And there in the bottom part, you have this save button. And once you click on save, the table is going to be saved, right? So here you have the user table, and you can see the column names and the types of them. And uh, if it is the primary key, you can see a key symbol with the column name like this, right? That is how you can create a table in PHP right? So is it clear up to that point? Or do you have any questions? Okay. Then we can move to the lab sheet where we create a form and where we insert the data to the database, and we are retrieving the data from the database as well. So, but before that, let me show you let me show you an example Okay, so this is what we are going to do. We are going to create this form register, and we are going to add these columns or the field names, right? So, and once we fill out these data or the fields, let me give some dummy values. Once we fill out the data, and once I click on the submit, it will be stored in the database, and as well as at the same time, it will be retrieved from the database, right? So here, I'm going to fill out the form, and once I click on the submit, it will saved under the database, and it will be retrieved to the same web page, right? So here you can see you have it in the database, and you have it retrieved to the main web page as well, right? So that is what we are going to do in the data in the lab sheet, right? Okay. Now let's see how we are going to do this one. Okay. So in the lab sheet, I have given you the steps that you need to follow. First of all, I'm going to create the database and the table before moving into the front end, right? So you can open the control panel. You can start the modules, Apache and MySQL. Then I can click on the admin button, which is under the MySQL module. And then I can create a new database named registration. And then I can create a table named users with the following fields, which are this, right? So let me open the PHP MyAdmin. Right. So here I'm going to create a new database called registration. So I'm going to click on new, and then database name is going to be registration. And I can click on create. And then my table name is going to be user, all in simple letters, right? And I need to have 4 columns. So I need to have first name, last name, email, and city, right? So for that, I can select number 4, and then I can click on create. So the first column name is going to be first name, right? And the type of it is going to be varchar because it is going to store text. So then the next one is going to be last name, and it is also going to be varchar. And I am going to give length roughly. So then the other one is email, and it is also going to be varchar, and I can give a rough data. And the last column is city, and it is also going to be varchar with this much of length. You can give a rough length for that field. So I am having these data, right? So I have first name, last name, email, and city, right? So here I have used uh, this column name with the first letter capital, and with underscore I have included the name part, right? So same as that I have included the last name field. So likewise I have given the column names. So I'm going to make first name as my primary key, right? So you can click on go, then it will be the primary key. So the first name is going to be the primary key and you have the other columns, right? So then I can click on save. So now I have this table. So this is the table structure. You have 4 columns, primary key under the first name and the size of them and the type of them likewise, right? So, but in this table, you don't have any data, right? So since you did not include any data, it does not contain anything, right? So then let's move with the second step, right? Now we have created the database and the table, right? Now we are going to create the form, this form, right? So to create that form, first of all, you need to go to htdocs folder under the SAMP location, right? So there, I told you, you have a shortcut. So when you click on the Explorer button on the SAMP control panel, you will be redirected to the htdocs folder, right? Simply, you will be redirected to the SAMP install location, and then you can find the htdocs folder. And under that, they say you need to create a folder called registration, right? Now we can create a folder called registration, and inside that folder, we can create a file name index.php, right? So to create a file called index.php, what you have to do is you can open a text editor and you can get a new file and you can save it under that particular registration folder with the name of index.php, right? Or else you can select the file type from here and the name is going to be index, right? So if you go to that particular location, you can see it. So here you have the file index.php. Okay, then let's move to the next section. Now you need to create this form inside that, right? So you can have HTML, CSS under any PHP file, right? So using HTML and CSS, so here we are not using CSS, but if you need to add styling, you can use CSS also. Using basic HTML tags, we are going to create this form in this file itself, right? So you can first open the HTML tag and in between it, so I'm just going to have head tag to add a title, but it is not going to be display on the screen, but on the title part of the browser. So and after the head section, I can open the body tag. And inside the body section, I'm going to create this form, right? So as you can see, we have a header as register, and then only we have this personal details and first name, last name, and the field that we need to input the data and the button to submit it, right? So first of all, let me add the header. So for this, you can use any header tag, but for this one, I'm going to use H1 header tag. right? So I have created the header first. And then since I have a form thereafter, I need to open the form tag. And but before that, since you have this register aligned to the center, I can use the center tag to align it to the center, only the header. So that it will be displayed centered. And then I have a form, right? So I'm simply going to open the form tag and close it. And in between that, I'm going to have the data. So I hope you know that inside the form tag, there are a few attributes that you can have. First one is action, and the other one is method, right? We will fill out these things later. So for the action, let me have it as post. Sorry, the method is going to be the post, and action is going to be the file that we are going to send the data. So we will fill out this action field later, right? So the method is going to be post, and so I'm going to open the field set tag. Since I am having these personal details in this manner, I'm going to have legend tag. And in between that, I'm going to have personal details wording. Right? So yeah, if we need to run this up to this point, we can do that as well. So what you need to do is, now we are having this file index.php under this registration folder. So it is going to be inside the htdocs folder and as well as inside the registration folder. So previously, if the file is inside the htdocs folder, you could have simply type localhost / then the file name. But since it is under a particular folder now, at this moment, you need to give the correct path, right? So what you need to do is you can type localhost and then you need to give the exact folder name that you have created. It is registration. Open a browser, localhost / registration / and then the file name, right? So you can get the data up to that point. So you can see we have the header register and then the personal details, right? Under that personal details, we can come up with the fields and the input section. So yeah. And then I'm going to have the label. So using label tag, I can have a label. So this is the first label. And I'm going to have an input field. So for that, I'm using input tag. And the type is going to be, so I'm going to type some text for first name. So I can have the type as text, right? So, and it is, okay, we can give a name for a particular input field that has to be unique, right? So here we have another attribute called name, and you can give a relevant name to identify this input field, right? So since this is the first name, so this name is going to be useful when we are passing the data to the database. That is why I am defining this attribute here. So after having the type of the input, So you can use name attribute and give a name for that particular input field, right? So here I can use f name since it is the first name, right? So then after that, I am going to have two break tags because I need to get the next field after the first name, right? So let's see the output up to this point. So after I have the first name and this input field, it is going to look like this, right? So you can do the same for the next input field, right? So you can simply copy this one and change it. So I'm going to have the last name and still the type is going to be text, but the name has to be unique and it is going to be this, right? So you can give any text for this name. This is used to identify the input field uniquely. So here, since it is last name, I'm going to have it as L name, right? So then I'm going to have the input field and the label for the email, right? So, and the type is going to be either you can have it email or text. So when you give the type as email, it will automatically validate whether it is in the email type. So it will simply check whether you have at sign inside that given input when you have the type as email. So then I can give a name for that input field as well. Finally, I am going to have the city. So the type is going to be text and the name is going to be city. So you can give any name for this, any meaningful name so that you can use it later when you pass the value to the database, right? So then I'm going to have my submit button. So for that, I'm going to use another input tag. So the type is going to be submit. And the value is going to also be submit. This value means the wording that you can see on the button, right? So after you have this code, you can have the output as this one, right? So you have the register and the input fields with the submit button. Is it clear up to that point? Okay. I hope it is clear up to that point, right? Okay, then let's again move to the lab sheet. Now we have created the form. And then after that, we are going to add the database connection and retrieval code to the index.php, right? So first of all, let's focus on the database connection code, right? So what you need to do is you need to go to the index.php file, and before the body tag, you need to add the PHP code to connect the data, right? So before the body tag, you can open the PHP tag and close it. So inside this PHP tag, we are going to have the database connection code, right? So I told you we need to have a connection variable. For that, before that, I'm going to have 4 variables to store the server name, username, password, and the database name. So first variable is going to be server name, right? And it is going to have my server name. Since I have located this server locally, the server name is going to be localhost. And then I can have the username. It is also going to be stored under a variable, and the username is going to be root. That is because we have we are having the server locally, right? So then if you okay, now we have another variable called password, and that is going to have the password for the server. Since I don't have a password for the server, you can keep it empty, right? And then Putala, you need to have another variable called database. So you can give any name. Here I'm using simply DB, right? And that is going to be the database name. So I hope you all can remember in the PHP MyAdmin, I created the database registration, right? So here I have the database as registration. So you need to give the exact name. So here I am having the registration in simple letters, so I can include it. So if you do miss any letter, it will not run, right? So you need to give the database name as it is. That is registration, right? Okay. Now I have defined some variables to store the data, and I can pass those data to the function MySQLi, and I can run that function on the variable as this one. So I am creating the connection variable, and I'm using this keyword MySQLi, new MySQLi, and within parentheses, I'm going to pass these variable names one by one, right? So you could have directly passed the data to this function, or else since it is easy for me, I have stored them under some variables. If not, you could have include this localhost directly without having this variable name if you need, right? So since I have stored under a particular variable, I am passing that variable to here, right? So then after that, I can pass the username and password and the database name, right? Okay. Now I have created so I am creating the connection by passing this data. Thereafter, I need to check the connection, whether it is connected properly or not, right? So to check it, Putala, I am using if condition, and I am using the connection variable, and I am checking whether it is having any error, right? So here, I am checking whether it is going to have any error. If so, I need to use this die keyword to terminate the operation, and I can print connection failed with the connection error type, right? So I'm checking whether the connection is having any error. If so, I'm going to terminate the connection after outputting the connecting error to the user, right? So if it is, so this is for the unsuccessful connection, but if it is successful, you can simply echo or print connected successfully message, right? So if it is having an error, you can have error message. If not, you can echo connected successfully. So that is all for the connection code, right? You are having the server name, username, password, and the database name, and you have passed it to the data connection creation, and you have stored it in the connection variable, and you have checked whether it is successful or not. If it is successful, you are echoing connected successfully, right? So since I have included this under the index.php, I think we can check this connection as well. So you can simply run the code again. So you can see after you run it, this connected successfully message is printed on the top of the web page, right? Which means you have successfully connected it with the database, right? Okay. Okay, now we can move to the next part of our lab sheet. So now, Bhutala, okay, before retrieving the data from the database, let me go to the next part, which is creation of the add items PHP file. So that is for the execution of SQL query. So we are fetching the data from this form, but we are not executing that particular create statement in here. If you need, you can do it in the same file, but I am using another separate file for that, right? So for that, you can take a new text file and you can save it under the same folder, which is registration, but the name that I'm going to give is add items and the type is going to be PHP. Right? It is going to be add items and the type is going to be PHP. So you have created this add items.php file. There, what I'm going to do is, after I put the details in here, I'm going to pass the data to there and then execute the SQL query to save them in the database, right? So let's see how can we do it. Okay. Since we are dealing with the database, whenever you deal with the database, you need to have the database connection, right? So that you need to have this code segment there. If you have them in a separate file, you could have linked it to this PHP file without having the same code in each and every file. But since I am having the same code in the same file, I'm just copying it and putting it in this add items.php. If you need, you could have a separate database connection file or config file, and you could use include keyword to include the configuration file here without having it, right? Here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have it on the top of the PHP file. So now we have the connection. After the connection, we are having the insert query, right? So let's see how we are going to have this insert query. Okay. So Putala, from this form, from this registration form, I told you that we are passing the data, right? So here we have two attributes inside the form tag. One is action, the other one is method, right? So the method that we going to pass this data is post method, and here in the action attribute, we can put the file name that you are going to send the data to, right? So which means I'm going to send these form data to the add items.php file so that I can say for the action, I'm going to pass the data to add items.php file. So when you type the file name, you need to give the correct file name with the correct letters, right? So here I am having capital A, capital I. So you need to give the name as it is. Otherwise, the data will not be passed to the given file, right? So once you click on submit, data will be passed to the addItems.php by using the post method. That is what it says, right? So now, here after you pass the data, there has to be a way that you can fetch those past data, right? So you are simply passing the data from these input fields and you need to fetch them or cache them in this file. So for that, what we use is we are creating a variable name to fetch the data one by one. And since you have used the post method to send them from the previous file, you can use $post keyword, and within parentheses, you need to give the name of the particular input field in the previous form. So which means here, Bhutala, I told you to give unique names. So for each and every input field, right? So here you have F name, L name, email, and city. So you're saying the data which is coming from the previous page will be fetched by this first name variable using the post method. And the way you identify the input field is this name that you have given for the input tag, right? So you can have it here. You have the variable name, $post, and then the name which you have given for the input field. So likewise, you can cache the data from the other input fields as well. So you have last name, and again, it is going to be sent using post method, and the name of that particular input field is LName, right? So within parentheses, within double quotes, you can give the name. So likewise, Putala, you can do the same for the rest of the fields. So you have email and the city. Here the variable name can be given as anything, but you need to give the exact name which you have given to the input field, right? So I'm having email as the name and city as the name. So I have given it as it is, right? Now I have got the data from there. So now I can execute the insert query. But before that, I hope you can remember in the slide that I told you that. So we need to have a variable and we can store the insert query there. Then we can execute the query. So I'm going to define the variable SQL and I'm going to have the insert query, right? So I'm going to have insert into, and then I need to give the table name, right? So here, Putala, in the database, I have created the table as user, right? So under the registration database, I have created the table user. So I need to give the correct table name here, and I need to pass the column names as well, right? So I can when you pass the column names, make sure you give the correct names, right? So here you have first name, last name, email, and city, right? So you need to pass the exact column names, right? So I'm going to insert the data to the table user, and the column names that I'm going to send the data is email, first name, last name, email, and city. And the values that I'm going to pass is what? So here I have fetched the values from the previous page name. So I need to pass these values to the database. So I'm going to insert them into so I can use the keyword values, and then I can pass the values one by one. So for that, you can open parentheses, and within single quotation mark, you can pass the variable name. first name, last name, email, and the city. Right? So I have inserted into these column names, and the values that I'm going to insert is this, right? Now, after writing this insert query, I need to execute this one, right? So here what I have done is I have stored this insert query in this variable SQL, right? Now I'm going to execute it using my SQLi query function. And for that function, I need to pass the connection variable or the connection object and the query in this manner, right? So at the same time, we are using this thing to find whether it is successful or not, to check whether it is successful or not. So we can put this query inside a if statement, right? So once you execute this one, it will return you a Boolean value. So when you put it in a if statement, if it is successful, you can redirect it to a particular page using this header keyword, and within parentheses, you can give the location that you need to redirect, which means after the, if this insertion is successful, you will be redirected to another page or to the same page itself, right? Or as you can echo or alert a message as successfully inserted, or else you can simply redirect it to another page. So here I'm redirecting to the same page itself. So by using location, I can give the file name along with that, if it is successful only. Or else what I can do is, if it is not successful, within if else part, I can echo a message, or I can echo an alert box as error in insertion. Right? So here what you simply do is you are checking whether the insertion is successful or not. And after you execute anything, it is better to close the connection. So otherwise it will use the resources if you do not close the connection. So to close the connection, you can simply use another function, mysqli close. So here you are using the connection that you have created. So for that, you can simply pass the connection variable for that function. Then it will be, connection will be closed, right? Is it clear up to that point? Okay, we can run this one and see whether the data is going to be passed to the database. So here, if it is successfully passing to the database, currently you don't have any data in this table. After you successfully fill out this form, you need to pass the data to it. So here I'm just going to give dummy data. Right? Once you submit it, it says we have data in code 19. Okay. So once you give the data, it will go to the database. Okay. Once you submit it, you will redirect to the same page. And once you go to the database and see, once you refresh it, you can see you have the data here, right? So this is the previous one I entered, and this is the second one I have passed, right? So the thing is, yeah, simply have the variables and have the insert query, and then you can have the, and you can check the whether the query or the data is inserted properly or not, right? So then you can view them after you refresh the table here. So under the user table, you can see there are data, right? So these are the data that we have passed. So Okay. Now we have inserted the data through a form. Now we can try out the retrieving part or the read part in CRUD operations, right? So just like I showed you before, so I showed you an example previously. So after I add something, I need to retrieve the data to the same page in like this. So let me share the screen again. Right. So in this manner, I need to get the data read from the database to the same page, right? So to do that, we can move with the next step, right? So now what we are going to do is we are going to have the read statement in the index.php file, right? So after the form tag, you need to open the PHP tag and you can close it. So in between PHP tag, you need to get the read statement. Right? So let's see how can we do it. So after the form tag inside the PHP tag, we can first have the select statement to retrieve the data from it. But before that, I'm going to have a variable called SQL and I'm going to store the select statement in that variable. So I'm going to select all the data from my table, which is user. So that's what it says. I am selecting all the data from the user table. Then I'm going to execute it and the result would be all the rows from the database. So Butala, after you execute the query, you need to get those data to a variable, separate variable, so that retrieved data will be stored in the result variable after you execute the query. So to execute the query, you need to use the connection object and the query function, and you can pass the variable SQL to that. So here you will run the SQL query, and if you have the data, those data will be stored under this result variable again, because in your table, if you have more than one data or if you have data, so we need to fetch them. So after you execute it, all the data will be retrieved, right? But still we are not showing them. So after that, here we are doing several things. First, we are checking whether we have the data retrieved or not. So if it has nothing on your table, if it is having empty rows, first we need to say this is not having anything. It is having empty rows. If you have the data only, you can print it. So to check whether you have the data or not, we can use if statement, and we are checking whether that result variable is having any number of rows, right? So this num rows is a keyword to check whether it has the number of rows. if it has any number of rows greater than 0, right? If and only if we are going to print it. Or else, Putala, we need to print saying it is having empty rows, right? So first we need to check whether it has any rows to be retrieved, or else you can simply print empty rows, right? So and if it is having something to be printed, right? So as an example, so in my case, if I am having any data in my user table in this manner, right? So I'm getting all the data and I'm going to store it under this result table, right? So that result table is going to look like this, right? So with all the data. And now what it does is, so I'm going to access the rows one by one and I'm going to fetch the data one by one, right? So for that, so if a row exists, you can fetch the data one by one using a while loop. So we are using this fetch assoc function, which stands for fetching the data as associative array. So it will return each row as an associative array. And so I hope you all know what are arrays. And in these associative arrays, you have the data. And if you need to access the data, you need to use these column names with the row, right? So you are getting the row as it is, but with the column names, by using the column names, you can access the data one by one. So if I take this first row and if I get it to another variable called row, so here this result variable is going to fetch the data as an associative array and it will be stored under this row variable, which means I am going to fetch the first row and it is going to be stored under this row variable, and using one of the column names I can access the data one by one in this manner. So I have the variable name row, and if I pass the first column names I can access Kamal. If I pass the variable name with the column name, I can access the second name likewise, right? So let's see how can we do it. So I'm having a while loop and I'm having this row variable and I'm going to use the result variable and I'm going to fetch the data as an associative array using this fetch assoc function. So since I am using a while loop, it will go row by row. So first it will access the first row, then it will access the second row until you come until you reach to the end. It will access the rows one by one, and then you can use echo statement to print them. So the first name is going to be here. To access the variable value, I'm using row variable and with the column name. Here also you need to give the correct column name that you have defined under the database. So here it is first name, last name, email and city, right? You need to give the correct spellings for that as well. Otherwise it will not retrieve the values. So I am printing the first name. And I'm attaching a break with that as well, right? Likewise, I can access each and every column data. So this is my last name. And this is the email. For the email, I have given, capital E. So I need to give the exact column name there. And then so you can print the values, and after this if condition, you can close the connection again using MySQLi close. By passing the connection variable. You can save the file and you can see whether it works or not, right? So see, so we have three rows in our database, right? So those existing data will be retrieved to here, right? Whenever you add a data, whenever you add the data, it will be added to the database. At the same time, it will be retrieved to your same page as well. So since we have the code in your index.php, we are submitting the form data, and after that, you are retrieving the data from the database and you are showing it in the same page itself. Okay. So that is about the CRUD operations. Here we have done only the create and the read part. You can do the update and the delete same as this. You can refer to the W3 school. There you have the PHP section, and under that you can find the codes and the examples as well, right? That is all for the lab sheet, Putala. So do you have any questions regarding this one? If you have anything, you can ask.
Okay, Nama. So with that, I think so we have discussed PHP concepts, and you all have done a good example as well. So today we did mainly the JavaScript and PHP part along with the database connection. So with the last week's content, I think now you can come up with the basic simple web application you all can implement, so you all can try out. So if you all don't have any questions, Lama, we can stop the session. So thank you for attending.